What's up, everybody? It is your boy Go to Trades, and I'm back with Straw Hat Trading Channel. We are back with another weekly analysis of the stock market so that you and I, me and you, are both prepared for the stock market ahead. We got to make some money, okay? Anyways, today is January 20th, which is the presidential inauguration. So we're in the midst of a whole president change, and obviously this is going to be important mainly because the futures market is open. So when we go ahead and we're looking at like the price action of the prior week, I'm only going to pay attention to that price and not the new price that's happening at the moment. Now we are gapping up a little bit. So things might be iffy on Tuesday. Hopefully that doesn't change our analysis and we can still have a nice roadmap and game plan for next week. Okay. So I just want to say that this weekly stock market heat map of the S&P, I think it's pretty cool, right? So last week we seen like mild stress within retail, healthcare, and technology, but the whole market in a whole, we just saw straight buying across the board. So that's bullish. Like even financials last week was looking kind of weak. Look at these numbers for the week, right? We're looking at 4%, 6%, 8%, 9%. Like these are strong numbers. 9%, 8%, 6%, 10%. Like we got 8%. Like we're seeing strong numbers across the board on these names. Strong numbers in finance. That's risk on. I can't even lie to you. And obviously when we're looking at the technology sectors, I mean, we still have a lot of greens. Yeah, we have these like stressful stocks. Like we have the Apples and the videos that's basically flat. We have the Meta that's basically flat. Netflix, you know, a little percent down. But for the most part, I mean, it's a broad-based buy for the most part. I mean, you still have energy looking pretty decent, commercial services looking decent, utilities looking decent, you know, producer manufacturing looking amazing, industries looking amazing. Like you look pretty good across the board. Okay, so this week, let's look at the major U.S. economic reports. So Monday, obviously, we don't have anything. We only have the inauguration that's happening at this moment. Tuesday, we also have nothing scheduled. On Wednesday, we have leading economic indicators. And Thursday, initial jobless claims is going to be pretty important. Friday is going to be decent. So we have the PMI, and we also have consumer sentiment and existing home sales. I mean, for the most part, this is going to be a very, very light week. I know there's going to be some data coming out. I think it's going to be CPI or PPI that's coming out in Japan this week. So that's going to be pretty important. But for the most part, when it comes to the U.S. economic calendar, we're not really seeing anything. But when we switch over to the earnings, we have a hefty earnings now, right? So we're going to have more healthcare companies coming to report. We also have a little bit more banks coming in. And we're going to have Netflix. Netflix to kick off the tech earnings is going to be pretty important. You just have a lot of healthcare companies and some banks. So for the most part, we're just going to see how that goes. I have no intention of playing any of these earnings, but if you want to do that, all power to you. Okay, so now let's go over my weekly trade analysis. Now, look, guys, if you guys don't know, every week now I will be doing how I'm performing in the markets and stuff like every week. And then every month I'll be talking about how I'm performing like with my investments. But obviously weekly, when I'm looking at like my trading performance on a weekly, I'm only talking about my swings and my day trades, okay? So, yeah, basically. So here's my stats for the week. So obviously this is from January 13th to January 17th. So we have a net return of $1,300. That's pretty good. Let's clap it up. We have a trade win percent of 72%. We have a profit factor of 4.39. A day win trade rate thing of 75%, and we have our average win and loss rate of 1.69. So this is a decent week. And honestly, we had some pretty good wins, and we also had a couple losses. And I could have went 100%, right? I could have went 100% on this week, but obviously this last day messed me up, right? And I'll talk about how it messed me up, but I kind of want to talk about like the wins first. So first I want to talk about this UNH trade. I kind of told you guys about it. last week. I was gonna take that, and obviously I was gonna hold this to earnings because we had earnings last week. But I said, you know what, it hit my key level, so I'm not gonna do it. Right. So I had this area marked off as some type of resistance area. So once I hit this resistance, I said, you know what, I might as well just take profit now. And that's what I did. I ended up taking profits in this resistance area, and we ended up making about 60%. This was pretty good. And obviously it was good because it was even better because it ended up pulling back. And we end up, if we were to hold it, especially after earnings, it'll be pulling, we'll be red because we'll be pulling back like under where we bought it. So right now it's at a discount. I'm actually looking at repurchasing, and obviously on my trading and investing account, yeah, this is the I like this a lot still. Another trade I want to go over. I want to go over this SPY call. I end up getting to some SPY calls. Pretty easy trade in my opinion. I end up getting some scalps and some day trades, I believe. I think there were scalps and day trades, and I think I had one for a swing trade, but it was super easy. All we did was we had our levels marked out last week. I already told you guys that this area was going to present as a buy zone. So around like 580, and I think on QQQ it was like 503 or like 502. Like those were your decent buy zones that you would want to be a buyer. And I was a buyer here, so we ended up getting this whole move, the bulk of the move up, and we end up selling, right? And as you can see, the very next day we end up getting some type of weakness, but it wasn't strong enough because the very next day after that, we got a gap up. Now, I'm going to talk about this whole gap up situation, what I think about it, and what I think is next, right? But this kind of segues into my loss, right? Because on Thursday, I played the downside. That's when I played the downside. I seen the weakness. I ended up playing the downside. I'm not going to go too deep into it, but there were decent trades. But what messed me up was on Friday, I continued playing the downside. And this can be catastrophic because I actually have more money leverage into puts right now. So next week, depending on how the market goes next week, I could be down a lot because I leveraged a lot last week into puts because we hit a key level in which I said, okay, if we find weakness here, I'm gonna go heavy. And we actually end up finding weakness, but that bounce back was crazy. So I'll go into what I'm talking about later, but let's just talk about this L of a trade, right? So on Friday, I end up getting some puts on this weakness, right? So we have this gravestone doji here. I mean, this looks like a classic reversal pattern, but we end up getting a strong buy up. And throughout the whole day, we just end up holding this area. We held right on top of our like hourly high. So I'm like, oh man, this might just be nasty. This might just be a nasty face ripper on Tuesday. But I obviously I do have some biases to the downside that can still prevail, and it shows on the ES features, and obviously again we'll go over it. But this ended up ripping my face off, and it just unfortunate because we were coming off of a hot streak. I'm talking about like a whole week of straight upside. And, it's okay. It happens sometimes, but depending on how next week goes, we're going to have to actually play some catch up. I'm not going to lie. But at the moment, we're looking pretty decent on our account. We're net positive at the moment. I believe that we are positive, like maybe almost $2,000 in total. Something like that. I don't remember. I have it somewhere marked on my Discord, but I don't feel like taking it out. But yeah, we're looking pretty decent right now. Okay, so next, let's go over the dollar and yields. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware that today is the inauguration, so I could kind of see how the dollar is moving at the moment, and I could also see like how the yields are moving at the moment too. But it's not gonna show in the price action of the candlesticks, but it's showing on the bids and the buys, right? So you could kind of see it. Anyways, at the moment, we end up closing the market, the dollar at 109.405. But what's interesting, we came into support. Our support area on the dollar is 108.6. That's a area of confluence that I was watching. Anywhere in between this area is what I'm watching as support. Luckily, we could kind of see that's where even at the moment during inauguration, this is holding a support. We end up holding right here above 108.2. And yeah, we're finding buyers here. So as long as we stay above this area, I do think that the dollar is looking strong. And remember, guys, I'm always going to reiterate, because there's always going to be new people that's coming. The reason why I like to look at the dollar and yields is because you could kind of precurse whenever there's going to be like a sell, right? And the reason why is because when the dollar is finding strength, the yield is finding strength, we end up getting pressure inside the market. There's a whole algorithm that I use to make money doing this. And if you guys want to know that algorithm and what I do and how I use it to chart, let me know in the comments. Because if you guys let me know if there's interest, engagements, you guys want to know, I will teach you guys. But if you guys don't care, then I don't care either. Anyways, if we end up finding support down here, especially to start the week, I do think that we'll see some type of sell to begin the week, personally. Now, that's what I think is going to happen. Obviously, anything can happen in the market, but we are coming into the support area and we're kind of wedging a little bit. So usually when you have a falling wedge, you end up breaking out. If we end up breaking out off the support, I do think that we're going to be trying to target $111 on the dollar. So I do think that can be a possible resistance point. And when we go ahead and look at yields, we are coming off of support zones between 4.5 and 4.6. So it's pretty interesting. This is a pretty interesting level. You are finding buyers here. And again, same thing. You are finding a little buy here. You're at 4.66. Ooh, I don't know. So yeah. So we are holding this area. It's pretty good. Now, what I would want to see is a breakout, right? If we break out above 4.691, then I do think we can continue the trend higher. And this area, again, I told you guys that this area, I believe, will be our major resistance. 4.945. This is, if we hit this area, I will be super bullish on the market. I will believe that like we will be topping on the US bond yield. I do think that we would top here. So this is what I'm watching for. I'm watching for that area. Obviously, we could just top like right here. This could be our top. Maybe we might make a lower high and break down. Who knows? But for the most part, I do think that 4.95%, I do think that that's going to be your top. But we're going to have to see how the market goes, especially this week. We don't have that much data this week, but again, we do have Japan data coming out. And remember, the last time something happened in Japan, we end up having a major sell. So I wouldn't count that out. Anyways, let's go into our futures market. Okay, so now as I analyze the futures market, it's pretty interesting. I'm not going to lie, right? So we're not going to look at this candlestick because this is what's happening right now. We're only going to pay attention to our weekly close, which is right here. Okay. Our weekly close is pretty interesting, right? Because on the NASDAQ, we've held this consistent downtrend, right? So we've held it. Let me go ahead and erase this. So we've held this consistent downtrend of high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and lower low. So now, as we hold this, I would assume that next week we either try to get another lower low, and if we can't get another lower low, then we find a lower high, right? So any lower high in this area, in between 21.2 and 21.4, that's where I think that buyers can try to step in and break you out, and this will make sense. I mean, you're kind of already breaking out if you find some type of retest of previous swing lows. I mean previous swing highs. I mean, why not? I do think that can definitely happen. So that's what I'd be watching for. And again, if you fail, like if you actually just fail and you create another lower low, but we have room all the way down here. Like I'm not counting out this 20,197 area. I'm not counting that out. That can still happen. I know everyone is getting bullish right now, as they should. Like, cool, I'm super bullish. I've never not been bullish, right? But this can still be a false breakdown, right? And the reason why I am not going to count out this being a false breakdown. I mean, let's look at it from a line chart, right? So from a line chart perspective, if we look again, this is a rising wedge. Rising wedges usually end out in tiers, bearish, right? So we end up breaking out of this rising wedge. Once we end up breaking out of the rising wedge, now we're breaking down. We're getting like this retest, right? A retest here. If we fail this retest to get back in, then I mean that's bearish. That's just a false break. So I do think that we have opportunity to still drop. Like I don't think we're done. Like I don't think that we're just out the woods yet. Now, the only way I could be like, all right, we're out the woods is if we actually, right? If we actually break above, what is it? Let me see what I have marked down. Like 22,000, or even at least getting above this area right here at 2190, at 21,900. Like I do believe if we get above like this area, between like this area here, okay, then we are bullish. Like we are super bullish. And at that point we're like, okay, we're good. But obviously we're gonna have to hold this area right now that we're kind of struggling, and that's that 21,500, between 21,500 and 21,650. So we're just gonna have to hold above that. If we can't hold above that and we end up failing, then I do think we're gonna go lower. So that's what I'm watching for on the NASDAQ. And the NASDAQ looks a little bit weaker than the ES, right? So let's go over to SPY. So when we go over to the SPY, and I should put it to full screen. I don't know why I don't do that more often. You see, the ES is pretty interesting because you're kind of already breaking out of a higher high. And you can see it from like today's price action. But again, I don't want to count today's price action because the market hasn't happened yet, for real. It's just the futures market. But if we were to count it, right, we do have our high here. We have our low. We have our lower high. We have our lower low. And people are counting this as like the lower high, lower low. Look, no, this isn't anything. This is just a range. This is like you playing in a range. I wouldn't count this as like the lower high, because here's your high, here's your low, here's your high, here's your low. This is your range right here, right? So at this moment, you're kind of trying. You're still trying to make a lower high. So if we don't break above 6,100 here, then you're still making a lower high, right? So if we end up making a lower high here, then that can instigate our buy zone that I believe that we were trying to target around here, this 57.82, 57.42. So that's why I'm still leveraged so heavily in puts, right? This is why I still think that we have more room to go down rather than going up straight up, right? Obviously, I could be straight up wrong, and that's fine. Like we'll change our stance. Like, it's cool. It's in trading, it's okay to be wrong as long as you don't stay wrong, right? So, boom. So that's why right here I wasn't even really too quick to sell, because this isn't even our lower high node. Our lower high node is right here, right? And right here. These are the nodes that I'm watching. This isn't the node. This is the trap. This is the trap, right? So I'm watching this. I'm trying to see what happens. If we end up breaking above, 61.10, then boom. That means we're bearish. I mean, that means we're bullish, super bullish. But if we can't even break above like this 60.90, we can't break above, like, why am I rushing out of my puts? Like, why would I rush out of it? Like, we're still possibly making these lower lows and lower highs. So I want to see if we can at least break down and retest this 59.38. If we retest this 59.38 and we keep it, then okay, I can assume that we're making a higher low and we can end up bolting back higher. But if we cannot, right? If we cannot hold this, then I have to assume that we're still making this descending triangle, right? Remember, descending triangle, series of lower highs and lower lows until you break down this equal support, right? This is your equal support area. We're looking to break this. We've tested it 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. We've tested it 3 whole times, right? So when you're testing it 3 times, and as you're testing it, every time you've tested it, you made a lower high, you can only assume that this area is trying to break. So if sellers actually bring you back down here to actually test it and you break it, you're gonna slide. So that's what I'm waiting for. I want to see if we actually slide, we end up breaking down, and we complete our head, or we complete our head and shoulder on the ES, right? So that's what I'm watching. Next, we have our RTY, our Russell, and our Dow Jones, right? So this kind of supports my ES thesis. This kind of supports my ES thesis that we might slide this week because boom, right? We are coming into resistances, right? We are coming into resistances and we're finding sellers here. This is a hard resistance to break. We end up peaking above and failing initially, right? We end up failing. So if we fail to get back above in this green resistance node area, if we can't get above, then I have to assume that we're gonna try to break down again. I mean, you got to think about it. We made a lower low. We made a lower low coming off this high, like coming off this all time high. We made a lower low. So I mean, we haven't gotten under this area since what is it? Since August. And I have to assume, like I just have to assume that if we fail this, that we're gonna either retest this area at 2160 or we're gonna go under. So that's what I'm watching for. I'm watching to see if we break down on this area or we actually continue bolting up. So we're just gonna have to see what happens next week. Kind of similar with the Dow Jones. I've kind of told you guys how bullish I was on the Dow Jones last week, and we end up getting that buy, right? Obviously, that's cool. But now we're coming into resistances. This is resistances right here, and we're finding weaknesses. So as we find weakness, I do think that we can end up testing this and sliding back down to retest our previous demand zone. So if we end up holding this area as demand, then we could end up sliding back higher. However, if we test this area as demand and we cannot hold it, I do think that we're going to be trying to test this 41,187 area. And I told you guys, I would still be a buyer here. Anywhere down here, I'm a buyer. So that's what I'd be watching for at the moment. Let me know what you guys think about the ES futures, the NQ futures, the Russell, and the Dow. Let me know what you guys think. I do think that this week we are going to see some turbulence in the markets. But if we end up holding these key levels above, like all these key levels that we're seeing right now on this Monday session, if we're holding it, especially throughout the week, I do think that we're going to break out to all-time highs and we won't see any more sells, at least for the short term. But obviously, if we don't, then yeah, we could definitely sell down. Let me know what you guys think. Okay, so next we have our tech chart. So our tech chart is pretty interesting, right? Because I told you guys, when we look at our big tech chart, so big tech, this is our compilation of lists between Tesla, Netflix, Apple, Amazon, Nvidia, Microsoft, Google, Meta, all the big tech stocks. This is basically all those companies all together on one like comprehensive chart. Now look, when we look at this on the weekly, this just looks like a classic bull flag formation, right? Now, if we actually break out of this bull flag, then I mean, look, we're gonna go back to all-time highs easily, right? But if we actually break down here, I do think we can see a nasty sell, right? So us rejecting between this 3150 area, this 3150, this was a part of the plan last week. We said we're going to try to retest this 3150. If we end up finding sellers, then we can instigate some type of sell to test the 29 to 2800, right? So this is what we're watching for next week. Next week, if we break down below 3110, I do believe that we can retest this 2950 area, or even if we break down under 2950, wow, we have room all the way to 2800. So this is a catastrophic week. If we cannot hold, especially between the next 2 weeks, we have to try to hold this area. We're going to have to try to hold over 3,000. So if we break under 3,000, I do think we're going to see a nasty sell. And yeah, that's what I'm watching for. On the XLK, we are finding some buyers this week. However, that 234 area is showing weakness, right? So our 234 area is right here. We're seeing weakness here. And we don't want to see that. We want to break above 234 and hold. If we can't break above and hold, I would have to see if we see some type of lower high rejection and see if we'll target under 223. If we end up targeting under 223, that's when I would have to my bullish stance on the technology sector would have to go out the window. I'm not gonna lie. We have to hold above 223. That's the only way we can remain bullish, right? So Even better if we hold above like 228, 225. If we hold above this area, like this demand area, we just hold above. I do think that we look good for sure. We can definitely catapult up, and honestly, this would look pretty good. Some good accumulation. Now on the QQQ, I do believe that the QQQ is kind of similar to the NQ. I mean, they're basically the same thing. You just gotta hold, right? If we hold above this demand area at like 518, what is it? It's right here. If we hold above 518, between 518 to 514, I do believe that we can support the breakout. And if we end up breaking below 518, then I'd have to target 510, 512, right? And this is like your last line of defense. A failure to hold this 510, 512 area, if we fail to hold this, then I would have to assume that we're going to retest 504 again. And a retest of 504, if we can't hold 504, then we're just going to have to potentially retest and test that 4960, 4990 area, which is down here. So that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of moving pieces, and anything can happen next week. We can either break out or break down, and we just have to be vigilant and pay attention to see what's next. Just watch the price action, basically. Next, we have the chips, right? So chips, I mean, chips look good, kind of. But this week, we're going to have to see a higher high. If we can't get a higher high this week, if we can't break above last week's higher high, which is at 265 on SMH, or even on the SOX, you have 231, and above here you have, what is it? It's 270. If we can't get above that, then I'm not too sure. I mean, we're kind of holding still above like previous previous lows. We're still kind of hovering above it, so we're looking decent on the most part on all these charts. Like, I'm still just cautiously bullish, but we're gonna have to make higher highs. And remember, we're still trading at this range all across the board. I mean, this is just a nasty range. I mean, even here, just a nasty range. I don't like it. So I'm just not trading chips like that. Like, I mean, trading chips right now is like super, super, super risky because we don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you could be setting to break down heavily, or you could just be trying to break out. I have no idea. I think I'm just gonna have to wait till the month ends so I can look at the monthly chart, because the monthly chart will kind of give more insight on what's to come. But right now, I'm not too sure what's about to happen here. I'm just not too sure. But let me know in the comments what you guys think. So now I kind of want to just go over the cash markets a little bit, more specifically the SPY, right? The reason why I want to go over the SPY is because I want to just put things in a perspective, right? I do think putting things in more than one perspective can kind of, keep you on your toes and keep you fluid, right? So I like the SPY for the upside, and I also like it for the downside. I do believe anything can happen here, right? And I think as we're looking at both these charts, especially the SPY, we are kind of ignoring crucial details, right? And the crucial detail that I believe that we're ignoring is that on the SPY, right? On the SPY, you look good, right? You look like you're going to break out. But what's different about this breakout, and why I think that this can be a false break, is because, guys, let me just erase this, right? Because this is just another trend line, right? Remember how I told you guys that we are forming some type of descending triangle, right? A descending triangle is like this, right? Where we keep on making lower highs and we keep on testing the same area. We're still testing the same area every single time. It's this area right here. This is the same area we keep testing. And we keep finding bounces. Every time we find this test and when this bounce, we either call a bull, like we call this a bear trap every time we find buyers here, and we've called this a bull trap every time we find sellers here, right? So who's gonna win? Is it the bears or the bulls, right? Now you can argue that the bulls are gonna win, and honestly, I wouldn't be mad if you made that analysis. Like, cool, the bulls are winning right now, cool. But here's what I noticed, right? Ranges. when you look at a range of a market, they act like a magnet, meaning that they kind of swing, right? So you have one range that goes into one direction, and the next direction they have a similar range movement, right? Like a similar range. So look at this deep range, and now we're having a deep range to the upside. So we had that deep range to the downside, and now we're having a deep range to the upside. So what does that mean, right? You're probably like, okay, get to the point. I get you, right? So right here, I believe that this side, when we end up breaking this range, this support range, this support area, once we broke this, that's when I thought that this was gonna be our sell. This is gonna be our massive sell, but no, we end up coming back into our range, and now we're testing our downtrend. So what got people messed up is that even though we're testing this, we're breaking out of this uptrend. It's kind of similar to what we just did, where yeah, we're breaking out, but are we truly breaking out, or are we just like trading in a range, right? Because this is our downwards range and this is our upwards range. So are we gonna catapult out of our upwards range, or are we going to actually break back down? Because if we break back down, then we could see even a deeper pullback. You get what I'm saying? So I'm not counting out that this trade to the upside is going to be an upside trade. I'm not going to say that it's not going to be an upside trade. You know, I do believe that even if we try to test the range breakout, let's try to test it, right? So if we try to, like, we'll call the range like right here, right? Even if we look at the range, so this is where we break out of our range. Boom, right? So it just works. It works in conjunction with our range breakout, right? So, I mean, at the same time, are we really breaking out? You get what I'm saying? Like, are we really breaking out? I can't trust this move until we actually break, right? Until we actually break out, I cannot trust this move yet. I have to stick to the game plan. And the game plan is we're bearish right now. In terms of the mid to short term, we've just created a bear trend, right? And we haven't broken out of that. We haven't broken out of that bear trend, not yet. Now, obviously, this all could change tomorrow on Tuesday. We could just be like dying. We could just die. You know what I'm saying? Or instead of die, we could just be breaking out. So anything can happen. So I'm just not counting out each side, each scenario. So that's kind of why I wanted to bring out this SPY chart, so you could kind of see the range, right? And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with the QQQ. It's just a range. Like, you see, we broke out of this range, and now we're just testing it above. I don't think that it's anything to be like, okay, we're out the woods yet, because I don't think we're out the woods as of right now. Next, I want to do some sector watches. Kind of just a reiteration of last week. I just want to watch these 4 sectors a lot. So again, I like energy a lot. You look like you are doing some type of ascending triangle. If we end up breaking out of this ascending triangle, so you break out above 100, I do think we're going to see like a monster move on energy. So I like it a lot. Energy sector, still love it. Looks pretty good. You have XOV. So you're attempting to break out. You're attempting to break out. It looks like you're coiling. And if we actually break out above, what is it, 142, if we break above 142, I do believe that we're going to try to test this 147 area. And if we break out to 147, obviously we might find some resistances there. But above 147, you do have 157, and I like it a lot. I do like healthcare a lot. So I'll be watching it. I want to see how it develops and all that good stuff. Now, I'm starting to like XOP a little bit. So you're coming into your support area, your support trend line, and you start finding buyers here. So if we end up seeing some major buys, I do think that we could find a lower high opportunity at $82 or at $81.69. We could find some type of lower high there and break back down. I could see that happening, and we could try to retest that 73, 74 area. That's going to be our battle zone area. Next, we have XOI. I love the industrial name. This is my favorite name. I bought some on the retest down here, and we end up just gap and go, gap and go, gap and go, gap and go. Now we are at resistances. Our resistances are at 137. This was our target. So I do think that in this area, we're going to sell down. This area, I do think we'll sell down. Probably get another retest at this area here. So if we get some type of retest between, between 133 and 134, I'm a buyer here. I like this area a lot. Maybe we get some type of gap fill here, and then we go. Who knows? But I like that area a lot. Lastly, I just want to go over some names that I'm watching, and we can end the video. So I'm watching UNH again. I do think if we test this area at 498, I'm a buyer here. I would love to be a buyer here. I like UNH a lot in this area. Every time we got into this area, it's proved to be a buy. So why change that thesis? So I like this area a lot to be a buyer on UNH. I like Lockheed Martin a lot. And the reason why, we're starting to see some type of volume come in. We do have earnings coming out right here. So even if we get another sell, I wouldn't mind getting another sell. My major buy area will be at 440. That's what I'd be watching. So hopefully if we get another sell, I'll be watching 440 as a buy. Now Caterpillar. I like Caterpillar a lot. And if you notice the themes, I'm really looking at these Dow Jones names. I'm looking at these Dow names because I do think that Dow names, industrial names, I do think names like these are going to be the names that are going to thrive in 2025. Okay? So I do think that Caterpillar is coming into major resistances here. And I do think that we're going to get some type of pullback. If we get a pullback and we get to this 369, 372 area, I do think we can be a buyer here. So anywhere between this area at 369 and 372, we look good. We look super good. And I would be a buyer here. So that's what I'm watching for the week ahead. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. And again, if you guys want to join the Discord, if you guys want to join a Discord, whoops, my bad. If you guys want to join the Discord, everything is here. Everything is nice and concise. You can see all of my information, all of my trades, all of my analysis, everything. You can see everything. You know, it's even how much money I have in my trading accounts, my investment journeys. You can see everything. Oh my God, this is the best Discord ever. Anyways, if you guys want to, the invitation is down below in the description. And with that being said, I am gone. Peace, everybody. Have a great week.